Many of you might only know him as the founder of EWB, but what you don't know about him is equally inspiring. Bernard is a professor of civil engineering at the University of Colorado at Boulder. He's the faculty director of the Mortensen Center in Engineering for Developing Communities at CU Boulder and holds the Mortensen Endowed Chair in Global Engineering. His current interests cover the topics of sustainability and global development, and the Mortensen Center in Engineering for Developing Communities' overall mission is to educate globally responsible engineering students and professionals who can offer sustainable and appropriate solutions to the endemic problems faced by the developing communities worldwide. So as could only be appropriate here on the morning of our 10th anniversary celebration, please join me in welcoming Dr. Bernard Amadei, the founder of EWB USA.
Good morning, everyone. I want to echo what Kathy said, and happy anniversary to all of you who have made this experience of engineering. I'm going to stick to this microphone here, and it has been an interesting 10 years. And again, thank you all, volunteers, staff, board members, and all of you for carrying the vision and making it a reality. And really, ultimately, it's really changing the face of the world and making the world a better place. I decided to, side remark, I'm a little bit disappointed since I'm in Las Vegas that there was no opening show. I expected the EWB Rockets or the board to set up on stage and play guitar, but I assume I would have to wait for 10 more years to see that. So, the title of my presentation is The Power of the Story. And it's the power of our story, of your story, of my story, but also the potential, the power of our story is. You want me to turn the system one or the other, but it's very annoying. I have to entertain these people for 45 minutes. I need to be comfortable. Okay, is that good? All right, so it's really the power of lifting up millions of people out of poverty, but also the power that we have of changing engineering education for the better, and believe me, it needs it. And also changing engineering practice for the better, so that we create engineers who are not just really good at using their left brains, their technical know-how, but who can bring their heart and their compassion into the discussion as well. So The Power of the Story is a title that I borrowed from a book called Ishmael, that's by Daniel Quinn. And Daniel Quinn talks about the discussion between a great ape and a human, and talks about how each one of us has a story to say, a story to tell. And in fact, if there was no story, there would not be any Engineers Without Borders. If there was no story, we would not be in this room today. So I urge you over the next few days, or even next year or so, to sit down with your own story and look at why you are so excited about Engineers Without Borders. What does it mean to you? Engineers Without Borders is more than bringing technology to faraway lands and getting smiles and feeling good about yourself. Engineers Without Borders has a very strong contemplative type of component, a very strong heart type of component. And my presentation today, you will see, is going to have an engineering component to it, but it also has a very strong contemplation. Therefore, can you come up and help us? As I mentioned to you before, you heard me say that, they told me, we need the problem solved now. We don't care if you can come back 6 months from now. We need our problem now. Our little girls here cannot go to school and we spend their time carrying water. So that was the beginning of the story, and it really broke my heart. Of course, I had done voluntary work before that. I've always integrated volunteer work in my life. Before Engineers Without Borders, I served as an impact person at the border shelter for the homeless. Before that, I was a clown. I went to clown school. I think that's the only one in this room that has a clown degree. And my name was Frenchy the Clown. I can clown if you want me to see it good. Actually, I had a show in downtown Las Vegas tonight. That's how I raised my money. But the clown stuff was really interesting because I was working mostly with young children with cancer at Children's Hospital in Denver. And it was an interesting experience of pain and awe and wonder and humility. Because as a clown, I could not go into a room and tell the person, how are you? Imagine stepping into a room where a child is dying of cancer. What did you say? How are you? I mean, of course, it's such a stupid type of question. So being a clown Frenchy taught me how to be humble and how to not only use my head, but also use my heart. And I found that in many ways the work of Engineers Without Borders requires essentially the same types of skills. You need to bring your heart. It's a very strong contemplative component of the power of the story. So I urge you to read that book, Ishmael, because Ishmael is actually the great ape that talks to the human being in that book, talks about how each one of us is starting with a story. We cannot not have a story. In fact, if you don't have a story, we need to create one. And you know that you're in the story when you hit, according to the ape, you hit the walls of the cage. And once you hit the walls of the cage, you're looking for a door and you're stepping, in our case, also in another cage. But it's important to understand that whatever you are, whatever I am, we are conditioned by stories of stories that bombard us and essentially define who we are. And the way we look at our stories also depends on our perception and belief system. So I urge you to read that book because it's a great book about the power of the story. And again, Engineers Without Borders will not be here without that power. And power times time gives you energy, you know that. There's plenty of it among Engineers Without Borders. Now, I can tell you about my story, my personal story, and it really, the trip to Belize changed my life there forever. I had no clue about what I was doing, to be frank with you, and I still don't have a clue about what I'm doing. And very often I talk to Frenchy and he tells me what I should be doing. But I think the story of Engineers Without Borders has to fit into a much bigger story, which we can call the universe story. I'm not talking about religion here, I'm not talking about spirituality. I'm really talking about compassion and the action that comes along with compassion. I think we cannot help remember that we are part of a greater story of 13 billion years of intelligent evolution that is still in the making today. And it is in that big story that Engineers Without Borders was born. A story of connection. All things are connected. Man that created the web of life is merely a strand in it that was Chief Seattle in 1854. My experience that has been over the past 10 years working in various areas of the world and in with various students, various colleagues, has really emphasized this interconnectedness. And for those of you who go to the field and you may have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. All in a sudden, it's a different culture, it's a really strange place, but somehow there's a certain connection that exists there. It's like the universe story. We need to start there, and within that universe story is the story of Engineers Without Borders. In many ways, Engineers Without Borders cannot to be an Engineers Without Borders, a student or professional, you need to be connected to that big story. You need to remember or become aware that each one of us is a global citizen of this great story. And by the way, the term university, for those of you who don't know about it, comes from universe. When the great
schools of the 1100s were started. They were created for young people to find their place in the universe. Wow! Is that the mission statement of our universities today? Probably not. In most universities today is to crank up a bunch of graduates there and put some members. Sorry, that's not the mission of the university. How many of you in a university setting, in your engineering education, and I'm talking about not only the young students today, but those who took classes 10, 20 years ago, have been exposed to reflection and contemplation and wholeness? A sense of that we all belong to something larger. You can call it whatever you want. I'm not talking about religion here. I'm talking about interconnectedness. If we are not interconnected, if we do not remember our own interconnectedness, then I'm sorry, the work that we are doing with ingenious without borders can be misplaced and can be more harm. So in other words, there's an aspect of the work of Engineers Without Borders which is introspective. I rarely talk about it, but I'm coming out of the closet there because short of having this compassion, this sense of action, this sense of wholeness, the work of Engineers Without Borders might be just futile. And that type of connectedness, that type of sense of belonging, is missing in our institutions today. Many of our institutions are actually not doing very well. And that's very sad. I'm talking about political institution, economic institution, religious institution, educational institution. There's really a crisis. And if we want a sustainable planet, believe me, a sustainable planet is a planet that is peaceful. A sustainable planet is a planet that is equitable, where no poverty is in place, internal and external poverty. And a sustainable planet is a compassionate planet, or it will not be. So, looking at this big picture, it's very encouraging to think that we are part of a bigger story. At the same time, there's some reality check. People, that story about, the proof is in the pudding. Let me rephrase that a little bit. The proof is in eating pudding. There's a lot of pudding out there. And believe me, the pudding that has been served to the 4 or 5 billion people whose job is to try to stay alive by the end of the day does not taste very good to them. Except that that pudding is a bit different from the pudding that we, the rich countries, are eating. When I look at poverty, and I'm working on a book right now, about 210 pages written, of which will be done in the summer. It's the introduction of my book, where essentially I compare the launching of Saturn V rocket with the launching of people out of poverty. I mean, for those of you who have been around for quite a while, you remember the Saturn V rocket. It's what, 7.6 million pounds of thrust at the beginning. Wow, that's really impressive. That we can conquer gravity. Now, gravity is not easy to overcome. Yeah, you can look at the technology, but look at what we have to overcome to bring mankind into space, gravity. Well, the same way as it took a lot of effort to lift that rocket off the gravitational field, it takes a lot of effort to lift people out of poverty. And instead of gravity, we have a bunch of forces that are essentially preventing us from lifting millions, hundreds of millions, and a few billion people out of poverty. We need today the same vision, the same will, the same commitment, the same leadership that we saw in a space program in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and 90s to lift people out of poverty. Short of that, that will not take place. So what are those forces? Those forces are addictive and additive. Since we are a bunch of engineers, we know that forces can be additive there. And they have different names that essentially permeate all of our institutions. Apathy, intolerance, dogmatism, lack of compassion, fear, violence, power, ego, greed, corruption, consumption, ignorance, denial, hatred, exclusion, competition, politics, jealousy, and so on and so forth. These are undermining all of us. They are often part of the story that we are told or made us to believe in. None of us are excluded from those components. As long as we have those components, and as long as we have our basic human characteristics, bounded rationality, limited certainty, limited capability, indeterminate causality, evolutionary change, heuristic approach to complexity and change, and our pathological forms of behavior. At least for me, it is hard to envision a sustainable, equitable, and peaceful planet anytime soon. Now, obviously, I'm not here to give you a downer, and again, I'm going to bring essentially my friendship account into the discussion there. But that's the reality. Let's not fool ourselves that our story, the stories that we are playing on a daily basis on this planet, that permeates our institutions that we have to interact with as PWB engineers. The story is somewhat mentally disturbed, right? There's something that got lost into the translation between the universe story that I presented earlier and what we have been done, every day on this planet. But there's hope. Now, there's hope, and I'm going to play the game of a alien coming from outer space. So I'm coming from outer space, and I come to your planet, and I look at the numbers, and I say, whoa, this planet is somewhat dysfunctional. These are numbers there, 1.2 billion people do not have clean water, and so on and so forth. 29,000 children die every day for reasons that are purely preventable. And in many ways, those numbers are a true reflection of the dysfunctionality of our institution that I presented earlier. That's the outcome. That's the manifestation. There's a quote from a theologian of the 12th century which deals with inner work and outer work. Think about the inner work of Engineers Without Borders and the outer work of Engineers Without Borders. I know the outer work of Engineers Without Borders. You guys are great. You don't have to convince me that there's compassion in this room. You don't have to convince me that you guys want to make the world a better place. What I have to convince is people in the universities, the deans and the chairs of departments and colleagues who do not see that new vision that you guys are carrying. Also have to convince companies that they have to change their slogans, how they present themselves. Because you guys have the right to decide where you want to work. If you cannot find compassion, if you cannot find smart, if you cannot find meaning in the university where you're at, hey, does Vidania quick go to a place where they offer it? You have the right to demand meaningful engineering education. Likewise, all of you are going to graduate or have graduated, or some of you may want to change job. You have the right to come to a company and say, how is your social responsibility? And if the message they tell you is, well, we contribute to NPR because it sounds good and it brings us more money to the organization, get out of there and find another company that walks the talk. So there's a message here. There are a few deans and a few chairs at the bottom. And there's a few CEOs of companies and VPs and so on. Change your story. Because the young people, the EWD generation that is coming out right now from the schools is changing the planet for the better. And they have the right to get meaningful jobs and meaningful education. And I urge you to go where you find that. And we can talk about it, but The EWB experience that we have experiencing or you have experienced before is for my time. Imagine, after 4 years of EWB excitement, you end up into a cubicle working for company XYZ, where you breathe some recycled air, you have artificial light, and since you are the junior ones in town, you have a cubicle without a window. Excuse me, but who wants to work in that kind of environment? That's anti-climatic to the work of engineers without borders, and therefore you ought to demand, not even ask, meaningful jobs, meaningful education, and go where those meaningful jobs are and meaningful education. You are in the driver's seat, and to the deans and the civil, and to the deans and to the chairs of departments who don't offer that. You know, the Stone Age did not stop because we ran out of stones. It's time for the dinosaurs in our institution to step out and go out. You know, when someone asks Niels Bohr, how do you think physicists are going to accept the field of quantum mechanics? New science, fantastic. Niels Bohr said, there's no way you can convince the old timers to change their mind. They will die, and the new ones are going to jump on the new mindset. Yeah, we have dying institutions. We have dying corporations. So be it. After the dying corporations, there will be some new ones, and some of those corporations will be created by you guys, by the way. I'm amazed to see how many young people, after experiencing EWB, have created their own companies with a different mindset, bringing compassion, bringing action, bringing engineering skills, bringing the whole person into their work. These are the young people, and I'm talking about the CEOs and VPs, that you want to hire. And the EWB generation is pretty damn cool. It's very impressive. And you want those people to be the future of the engineering profession. You want to hire them. And I know that many corporations were represented in the room here today. You are the exception rather than the rule. And you are essentially walking the dog, and I want to thank you for that. I'm an alien. I'm still coming on my spaceship there, and I see this. 2.2 billion children in the world, more than 50% live in extreme deprivation. That doesn't sound like a very impressive type of world to me. Then I go to see the poor. In writing my book, I came across a series of 3 reports that I urge you to read by the World Bank. It's very rare than when I upload the work of the World Bank. If you really want to sleep at night, if you are following insomnia, read the World Bank report. It works all the time. It's just amazing how much nonsense they put in those reports. But there are a few good ones, and these are the 3 ones called the Voices of the Poor. They went after 60,000 people in the world who are poor and told them, what do you want? What are your needs? What does it look like to be poor? Is it about money? Because outside poverty is associated with economic growth, like GDP or HDI, all those terms there. Higher they are, therefore everybody should be fine. Well, that's fine maybe at the nation level, but you have seen, like me, at the local level, at the community level, it's a different picture altogether. So the HDI, the GDP, GNP, GNI, all that stuff there, you can throw that out of the picture. But those 3 reports talk about the voices of the poor. So as an alien, I read those reports, did not fall asleep. And essentially those reports, I'm just summarizing what the poor are saying. Poverty is pain. Pain, psychological pain, physical pain. It is pain. It is living in precarious livelihood, where you don't know what's going to happen during that day. It is isolation. You have no voice whatsoever. You are stuck into a groove of poverty. It's gender relationship. Most people who suffer the most in the world of poverty are women. So the slide before, half of the children in the world are essentially below the poverty level. There's quite a few in the United States as well. In the Denver area, 1 out of 4 children live below the poverty level. Weak state institutions and communities where the poor have no voice whatsoever. They cannot even vote in many places, and that includes some places in the United States as well. Limited assets and very high vulnerability. Even if the household is capable of making a little bit of money, that household is susceptible to a small change. If the breadwinner in a household has an accident, they may have gone out of poverty a little bit. Those people will fall back into poverty in no time. In India, someone has to marry a daughter, save some money. The little money they have saved essentially has to go for supporting the daughter in a wedding. That will bring people back out of poverty. And also it's the poor are extremely vulnerable. You can see that there's nowhere here where poverty is a lack of money. In fact, if you look at poverty reduction, I hate that term, and you heard me say that before, because it's extremely demeaning. Don't tell people they are poor. Who decided that the people are poor? I'm talking about more wealth enhancement. And for those of you who have traveled into faraway places and worked at the village level, I'd be curious to ask your story. What did you find? You probably found more smiles, and more compassion, and more care, and more community spirit that you found in your own communities or the university. Finding a smile on campus is a very rare occasion. What do you think? I became Frenchy and I put a mask on my face so I could smile and dance in the middle of the road. Because I cannot do that as an engineering professor. Supposed to be congested and constipated in a classroom. Supposed to stand in front of 40, 50 people and tell them everything I have to know. Did you know that the concept of a classroom was invented about 1200, 1300 with the first universities because there were no books? And the intent was simple. One guy, stood in front of a bunch of wannabe people and told them a story for an entire semester, years or 4 years and so on, and that was it. That was it. That's why the classroom was invented, with rows and columns, very linear thinking, one guy standing there and 40 suckers essentially trying to suck it up for the next 4 years. Whoa! We are using the same type of model 700 years later. Whew. As an alien, I would say, man, those guys are being primitive, okay? And I would walk around and I would say this. Not a pretty picture. I have to write a report, by the way, for the great council on my planet, and I'm taking pictures. And I would look at this and I say, whoa, here there's a lot of people who have, and some people who don't have. The world is not flat, my friends. Going through Mr. Friedman would want us to believe it's probably flat in the big capitals of the world, but when it comes to local conditions, the world is spiky. Very spiky. And you can see that there are places, even within a country, where you have resources, in this case energy, and other places where you have absolutely nothing. So yes, it's fine to talk about development issues at a global level, a la Washington DC, a la World Bank, a la USAID, a la CARE, a la everything you want. But when it comes to everyday life, the world is painful for everyone on this planet who are poor. These are the people we are trying to address. And also this diagram shows that, well, not only the world is spiky, but there's a lot of missed opportunities. There must be at least 5 Einstein in the continent of Africa. There must be at least 5 Einstein in the Amazon region. We need to empower the young people to be the change that they want to see in the world. And right now, those people who are poor are isolated, and part of our job is to bring them into the discussion. Same thing here. That's essentially health versus the GDP. And Look at all the countries of Africa here. The world is spiky, the world is not flat. Some have more than houses, and some are in deep pain. And as you have heard me say there, the kind of engineering that we do to lift millions of people is called engineering for the mathematics. It requires a complete different mindset than what we have been using in engineering education and engineering practice. Completely different mindset. And I will get to that in a few. Now, I talked about the poor, some poor, then there's priorities of the other poor. There's plenty of them around here, by the way. Go to Las Vegas, 10 miles from here. You'll see a lot of poor. I'm not talking about poor here in terms of different type of pain, too. And those people are completely effed up. Look at the planet today. We are spending in 2010, and the statement I'm making is not political or anything like that. You heard me say we spent $1.4 trillion on military expenditures last year. It translates into about $30,000 a second. And how many teachers would we hire every second, on our planet with the money that we are spending? Our priorities are completely insane. Insane! Look at the numbers. Alcoholic drinks in Europe, 105 billion in 1 year. Some have read around, again from my book, that the cost to get rid of poverty in the world. We have the know-how, we have the resources, we have the technology, we don't have the will to do it. The cost to bring people out of poverty, that includes clean water, sanitation, energy, shelter, immunization, education, and so on, ranges between $40 billion and $150 billion a year. That's about 10 to 35 days of military expenditures per year. 40 to 150 billion, that's the range. It depends on who you talk to Jeff Sachs or you talk to Bill Easterly and so on. Those guys cannot come up with a number. But that's the range. It's achievable. Completely achievable. And we are contributing, okay, we are not World Bank and so on, but we are contributing to making this a reality. And look at the number, alcoholic drinks in Europe, 105 billion. Perfumes in Europe and the United States, 12 billion. Business entertainment in Japan, 35 billion. Tech industry in the United States, 52 billion. I remember my wife and I were in London during the winter break, and we went to Harrods. Cannot buy anything in Harrods. And she said, "You need a new pair of jeans." And I said, I don't like shopping. So, so we went there and looked at jeans, $500. And I don't know what it is, but the jeans, do they have a bunch of holes in them? I don't know what it is. But I think I never got that. So if you want jeans with holes, I can create some for you. And some of it at $500. But we went to the top floor, and that was the pet spa. Whoa! The British pet spa. Another one of four. Okay, in that pet spa, they were like those big poodles there that were shaved there, and they had the mini treadmills, all the poodles some exercise. And there was an entire collection of clothes for Christmas, Easter, for your favorite cat and your favorite dog. Okay, excuse me, but as an alien, I would say, those British people are effed, okay? Alright? Their priorities are completely wrong, okay? I mean, believe me, it hit me for the rest of my life. I mean, I cannot take life anymore. I mean, the human experiment really seriously now. There's something lost into the design. Cigarettes in Europe, 50 billion. So just go see by yourself that the types of stores that you will see. So I'm an alien, I come here, I see all those numbers, and I say, hey, I need to talk to your leaders. And here the diagram on the left shows the most common occupations for politicians worldwide in 2009. Lawyers. Look at the engineers at the bottom there. That's when I decided in my spaceship, and I called the headquarters and said, I'm getting out of here. Because this is a dysfunctional civilization, and pretty soon they're going to suck me in and I'm going to be like one of them. But before I did that, They told me there were two places on earth I need to visit. One is New York City, and the other one is Las Vegas. So I went to New York City, and I went and knocked at the door of the World Bank and the United Nations, and they told me, you know what, we have goals. We have a call to action. I said, whoa, those guys mean something. Okay, those goals are not perfect, but we are reaching those goals. Only the 792 countries in the world have decided that there are goals to make life a little bit better for the people on our planet. That's a great place to start. Then they told me, you've got to go to Las Vegas. And they told me to go to the cotton ranch, but I couldn't find it. So I ended up, for whatever reason, I had some problem with my spaceship, and I ended up right behind the building here. And they told me there was an EWB conference. So I sat at the back there and I said, whoa, those young people here are doing some pretty fantastic work. So I told myself, I better stay. I called the headquarters of my planet and said, I better stay. Those guys could do some intergalactic help. So that's why I decided to stay, and that's actually what with you. To change our story, to change the mindset that drives our story, we need a different level of consciousness. There's no doubt about it. Here's a quote from Albert Einstein: the significant problems we face cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that we do. Put that in your DNA. There's no way we can solve poverty. There's no way we can create a new model of compassionate humanity on this planet without changing our mindset. And it starts with our inner work. It starts with our contemplation. It starts with our compassion. It starts in understanding our gift. It starts in understanding our story. And not only it's understanding it, it's standing against poverty, but it's also walking, running the distance. I attended a conference of 2 years ago at New York, and I had 1,000 young people who stood up and said, we are standing against poverty. So what? Everybody can stand. What about standing against poverty? What about walking against poverty? What about running against poverty? What about running marathons against poverty? What about putting poverty under your blood there and walking the talk and changing the mindset of our institutions, all of our institutions, educational institutions, professional institutions, religious institutions, economic institutions, political institutions? That's what I'm asking you to do. Not to stand. An idiot can stand. And the EWB engineer walks the talk and makes the world a better place every day of his or her life. And I'm asking you, it is time for us to question the orthodoxy of our institutions. I'm a rebel, I'm frank. What we do in France, we can and sell revolutions. Want to hear about revolution? Read the work of liberation theology of the 1970s in South America. Freedom. Poverty, development as transformation. Development as freedom. Read the work of Martin Luther King. Action. Not sitting, talking about poverty like they do in the World Bank. Read the work of Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, of the field of appropriate technology. That concept essentially was fed into the work of Schumacher and the intermediate technology movement and appropriate technology movement. What do those great leaders have? They had a sense of belonging, a sense of compassion in action, a sense of transformation, a sense of questioning the story. And believe me, it is time for us to question the story that we are being told, because I can tell you, I'm 57, I am sick and tired of the story that I was told. Because that story is not me, it's not my humanity. It's time to change. It's driven by the heart, and it's also driven by the mind. It is time to change that. And I'm going to skip a few slides because I'm running out of time. But there's a higher level of consciousness there. Something to read the work of David Corton. Primary consciousness, secondary consciousness. The third one is the good citizens, the good employee, the good student, the good father, the good church leader, the good church goer, the good voter who doesn't question anything. You know what? 90% of the planet is right here in that level of consciousness. There's very few people who have a sense of cultural consciousness, inclusivity, system thinking, integration, the awe and wonder and the humility that the great story of the universe is asking us to have. Yeah, now we are talking. Now I'm tapping into your hearts there. I can see they're all bouncing all over the place. It's exactly, I wanted to be really provocative this morning. Because I'm sick and tired of the story. And I have to get out of my box there. It's very hard for me to be an extrovert. Ask my wife, are we going back into my cave after this meeting? But I'm sick and tired of listening to the story as this story is killing plants, is killing animals, is killing human beings day after day. 29,000 children die every day for reasons that are purely preventable. We are losing species like, we have lost 10,000 species a year, pretty much. I don't know, but if you are comfortable with losing 10,000 species a year, but essentially it's getting rid of 10,000 pages of the book of creation, of the universe story. And knowing that there's no Xerox copy in the library. What? Are we insane or not? So I will, as a Danian, I'll say, hey, they need some intergalactic help. I'm going to show them that they are interconnected. And social network show us that actually proof in the pudding. The pudding is actually quite good most of the time. And there are some basic needs that need to be addressed. And go back to Maslow's laws of basic needs, 1943. If you have not read that, it's a must read because those needs are still there. It's about creating secure and stable communities, empowering people through transformation. Development is transformation. Development is freedom. Freedom from pain, freedom from fear, freedom from isolation. What's the role of engineering in there? It is big. And you see that on your projects. So development as transformation, personal transformation, prioritizing basic needs, respecting the wealth of communities, and believing I found more talent, more smiles, more humility, more compassion in villages in Africa than I have seen on campus of the University of Colorado for the past 30 years. Justice for all, inclusivity, self-reliance, alternative structures. We are talking about not development as charity, but development as empowerment, development as transformation, development as freedom, integrated development, participatory development. Short of that, let's not talk about development. And I'm going to stop here because I ran out of time. I think you got enough, right, in terms of my being outspoken this morning. I had to be. I was debating about it. How am I going to approach that crowd? My presentation was to show you that our story is a little bit bigger than, working EWB, meeting, working on EWB projects, doing blueprints. These are the stuff that we are really good at as engineers. But we are talking about here creating a new type of engineer, and I think it's already in the making, EWB in the making, and EWB generation is the way to make this world a better place. It's time for us to reconsider what it is to be human on our planet. Very, very important. So the work of engineers without borders is beyond technology. The work of engineers without borders, you've got to bring your heart into it. So I'm asking you to do one again. I know to give you a homework assignments to come and do the lecture. And I think it's very important that during this conference or later on, that we sit down and you sit down with yourself, with friends, with the partner, with the employees, and identify your story. What was? Why are you here? Is it just to come to Las Vegas and have a good time? What drives you? What's inside you? What is missing also in English without borders that you would like to see? And I think once you find out, you'll be surprised that there's a new humanity in the cooking. You guys are the cooks. And I have no problem whatsoever as far as the future of the engineering profession because it's a good. Thank you.